Then the second level is you sit down and you discuss the ground rules, again, before you get too serious. Once you're already moved in and married and now you're going to discuss ground rules, that's too late. So my wife and I had a very long, detailed discussion. This was several years ago, and I laid out all the negatives of being married to me. And non-monogamy was one of them. And that actually wasn't the one she was pissed off. There was like 4 or 5 of them, and that was just one. Matter of fact, the one she was scared about was that I work a lot. I work every day. She's like, well, she didn't care about the non-monogamy because I'd already been doing it the whole time she met me. So she was used to it at that point. It was more like, well, you're going to work a lot. You're never going to spend time with me. It was more of that kind of stuff. But you lay all that stuff out, and then you lay out the ground rules, and you're very specific about the ground rules based on what you're capable of and what you think you're not capable of emotionally. You just don't go hog wild before she's my wife. Hey, girlfriend who are thinking about getting serious, we're going to be non-monogamous. Here are the parameters, but here's what you can't do. You can't bring guys over and fuck them on my couch. That I'll throw up. You got to be honest about that stuff.
I'm joined by Caleb Jones from all the way from the other side of the Atlantic. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, man. Very good. Very glad to have you on. Lots of interesting stuff for us to speak about. You have got the largest tankard that you're drinking out of that I've ever seen. What is that?
You know, I drink a lot of water, and so I would have these little cups by my desk, and it was never big enough, so I was like, I gotta get a fucking, I gotta get a tanker, I gotta get something real.
What does that, that's like a what, liter and a half? Or you guys would call it like a gallon, I guess?
Yeah, probably a liter and a half, yeah, something. It's just water. Be cool if it was vodka, but it's not.
Yeah, or like some mead. It's a bit Game of Thrones, yeah.
I don't drink. I've never been drunk in my entire life, so it just makes me look cool when I drink my water, I guess.
That's an interesting lifestyle choice. Why did you choose to do that?
I don't have an answer for that question. I wish I had an answer. I wish I had some kind of cool story like, well, my parents were alcoholics. And no, my parents were normal. And here's my guess. So when I was in seventh grade, so I was about 12, I took one of the cans of beer out of my dad's refrigerator. And I took it on the side of the house and took a little coffee cup and I filled it up. And I promised myself I'd drink the whole beer because I want to get drunk because that looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I went, and I made myself drink the whole beer. I went, oh, this is terrible. I can't wait till I get drunk. I kept drinking and drinking, and then nothing happened. I just felt dizzy for a few minutes. And I think maybe that was it. I'm guessing. Yeah. I'm also an INTJ for Myers-Briggs, those Myers-Briggs personality types.
Okay, yep.
So I'm an INTJ, and I'm an extreme INTJ. So my little dot is in the far upper corner, and the INTJ is in the far upper corner of the 16 personality types. Mm-hmm. So not only am I an INTJ, I'm an extreme version of an INTJ. Mm-hmm. And so one of the aspects of most INTJs, not all of them, is that I'm a control freak over myself, but I don't want to control anybody else. So I'm thinking that this isn't conscious, but maybe subconsciously I don't want to lose control of myself by getting drunk.
I understand. I think
maybe? I don't know. That's a guess. I really don't know.
That's the same for my mom.
I'm going to have to do it at some point. Yeah. People are like, you got to get drunk once. All right, I'll get drunk once. It's fine.
So I'm 9 months into 18 months sober, right? I'm a club promoter by trade. So I've run nightclubs for 12 years, and that's been my trade.
How many? You're 9 months in?
9 months sober, yeah. But this is I've done 6 months twice, and I'm doing 9 months now just to see if I can. Okay. My argument is that I work in the nightlife industry. I've worked around about 1,000 nights in my career across the last decade and a bit. So if I can do it, other people can. And on top of that as well.
Do you consider yourself an alcoholic or no?
No. So no. Ed Latimore, have you heard of Ed?
Yeah.
So I podcasted with Ed, and he synopsized alcohol and people's views of sobriety better than anyone I've ever heard before. And it's this sentence: alcohol is the only drug where if you don't do it, people assume you have a problem.
Yes.
No one's saying to you, why are you not shooting up with heroin today? Why have you not got a massive line of cocaine on your desk behind you? But alcohol's so ingrained into our society that people just say, you're not drinking, you must have a problem with alcohol. That's the only reason that anyone would choose to go sober. Whereas for me, I was a typical sort of social drinker, go out maybe once every fortnight, but I'm a club promoter drinker, right? So when you go out, you go hard. Like it's straight arming spirits into your mouth in a nightclub, etc. All that sort of stuff. Yeah, exactly. And I just, about 2 and a bit years ago, I wanted to do more with my life. I wanted to have a lot of experiences. I wanted to travel more. I wanted to start this podcast. I wanted to push my business and my fitness and I wanted to develop a reading habit and a meditation habit and all these other things. And I looked at my time as if it was a set of accounts and saw that there was this big day and a half cost getting chopped out of my fortnight period. One day hungover and then a half a day at maybe 50% capacity. And then you finally get back onto it. So I honestly think it doesn't surprise me that you have a lot of irons in the fire, considering you've never been knocked off with a hangover. Like the only time that you'll be like that's if you're ill.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I've wondered about if I was a typical drinker or even a heavy drinker, because I've got some of those guys in my family, where I would be today as opposed to where I am now. And also how I would look, how my skin, I'm 47, so how my skin would look now.
You look fantastic for 47.
Well, I moisturize.
That's the key, ladies and gentlemen. Moisturize early.
Yeah, there's an old Doctor Who line. The girl says, "You're 900 years old," and he's like, "Well, I moisturize. I moisturize." Yeah, but I know I have buddies who are my age that I've known since high school who are, not even big drinkers, but regular drinkers, and my God, you can see the difference. Even guys who don't get a lot of sun like me, they still like, wow. Yeah. Or smokers too. Smoking's the other one. Smoking and drinking. I've never smoked anything either. Yeah. I smoked some weed once for about 3 seconds. So okay, here you go. Thanks. That's about it. Yeah. So what I had to learn how to do was to drink wine. I'll sip wine because for what you're talking about, I would sit with a group of people or even on a first date with a woman and they'd be drinking and I'd have nothing or my water. And they go, why don't you drink? People get uncomfortable. Yeah. Especially if everyone else is drinking and you're not, especially including if you're one-on-one, they're drinking and you're not. People hate that. Why don't you drink it? So I had to learn to find whatever the most pussy wine there was, which is Riesling, I think. Okay. So I get a Riesling, little girly wine, tastes almost like apple juice. And I would take a sip. And they go, oh, good, he's drinking. Okay, good. Yeah. And then they start drinking again.
They don't notice that you've gone through like one glass in the time that someone else has gone through a bottle.
Not even a glass.
Yeah.
Half a glass.
Yeah, I get you.
Half a glass for 2 hours. Yeah. But it looks like I'm drinking because it's sitting in front of me and it's less than what I got when I was served to me. So oh, good. Okay. He's drinking now. I can relax. Now that someone else is doing something, I can relax, which is the exact opposite of my entire viewpoint of life. But that's how human beings are. We're communal creatures.
We're mimetic creatures, as my friend George and previous host, guest of the podcast would say. Yeah, alcohol's a weird one, man. It triggers people in such bizarre ways. You're totally right. There's nothing else. Like, no one else is shooting up heroin or getting a tattoo or going paleo or like riding their bike to work and saying like, why are you not doing all of these things? People do.
That's changing, in some parts of the world, especially in mine. I don't know about England, probably not. But in my part of the world, so the Pacific Northwest United States, weed is becoming like that now. Oh, you don't smoke weed? People are they're starting to get surprised now because it's become so prevalent and it's legal in most parts of the United States now. Maybe not most, a lot.
Yes.
So marijuana is starting to move in that zone of alcohol where people, they don't think something's wrong with you don't smoke weed, but they are. I've had people be surprised
that you don't.
In this region.
Do you think that that's partly because you're a blogger, an author, writer, one of those creative-y types, kind of pushing the boundaries? You maybe sound like the sort of person that has that personality? Probably.
Yeah, probably. Another aspect is that I'm a libertarian, so they just expect that that's part of the deal. Another one is people who know my lifestyle sexually. They go, well, really? I'm shocked you don't smoke weed. So maybe it's a lot of factors. That's a good point. Didn't think of that. Maybe.
If you're sleeping with multiple women and not holding down monogamous relationships, making a stand, people presuming that you may be making a moral stand or some sort of virtue stand with regards to the alcohol or the weed, which it doesn't.
I get that a lot.
Yeah, it doesn't seem as the case. It's just a lifestyle choice. The same way as some people don't like to wear blue or some people don't like to drive stick. Like this is just a lifestyle choice.
Yeah. Oh, I've gotten that a lot. People assume that I'm Christian or Mormon or something like that. Oh, you must be really religious. You don't drink? No. I'm agnostic. The opposite of religious. It's societal programming. No. I believe in God, but I'm not religious. So no. So yeah, I've definitely gotten that. Yeah, that's just part of the culture I've learned to accept. You have to learn to accept the oddness of your culture, or else you're going to be pissed off all the time. And I want to be happy, so I can't do that.
The marijuana thing's bizarre because we're seeing a substance go from being heavily controlled to legalized for medical use to like fragmented legalization across the states. In certain areas, it is still illegal. Some it's legal for medicine. Some it's totally legal recreationally. And we're observing the social conditioning change in front of our eyes.
Mm-hmm. Most Americans, I don't know about most, half, I forget the stats. They always change. Something like half or most of Americans are on something anyway. Prescription drugs, things like that.
Yep.
Something like the majority, not the vast majority, but the majority of women over 35 or 40, again, I forget the statistics, are on some kind of mood-altering drug.
Man, that's terrifying.
It's really bad. So regardless of weed, irregardless is not a word. My grammar teacher, regardless of weed, people are on drugs anyway. It's part of our culture.
Which one do you want to choose?
And it's getting worse. As Western society continues its slow collapse, you're going to see more and more people going in that direction anyway, finding something that'll make them not miserable. So it makes sense to me that more people will be smoking weed or prescription drugs. Heroin is a big epidemic now, at least in the United States. Heroin's gone crazy. Last 4 or 5 years, it's gone nuts. I've seen it.
There's some really interesting TV shows. So the UK, we get exposed to some of the stuff from America, but I think it's quite difficult for us to not fact check, but like a virtue check or integrity check the content that we're being fed, because like I see a lot of my stuff. So I'll see stuff from Netflix that's like Dope, which is a really cool Netflix documentary series, 2 seasons in. Each episode is in a different US state, US city, and one film crew follows the cops and one film crew follows the drug dealers, and you see how the two are trying to catch each other and how they play off against each other. It's all the drug dealers have got masks on and stuff like that. It's honestly fascinating TV program. For anyone in the UK that hasn't seen it yet, I suggest that you go watch it now. But like stuff like that, like I don't know how realistic or how dramatized that is, but they talk about this fentanyl crisis and they talk about like Xanax crises and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, trying to judge it from the UK, because we don't have, the big pharma companies aren't allowed to advertise on TV. So that ask your doctor, all that stuff doesn't exist for us. I wonder. It's
an epidemic, but it's not something you see out in the world. So you can go to a mall or walk down the street in the United States. You will not be able to tell that people are on whatever they're on, or they're going to take something later that evening. Even with a lot of the heroin people, you really can't tell. So, but when you get to meet people and talk to people and get into their lives, you find out, oh my God, really? Holy crap. Just women alone, women I've seen, last 4 or 5 years, the heroin thing it's nothing like it was 10 years ago. It's a noticeable difference. And again, that could be regional. The United States is such a big place. It's very hard to say in the United States.
Everything's localized, right?
States. Yeah. You can't say, I live between Seattle and Portland. So in that area is what I experience when I'm not traveling. I travel a lot. So it's hard to say the United States. That's why I like these people who set a goal to like visit 100 countries. My goal is based on cities. Because if you've been to Beijing, have you visited China?
Yeah.
No, you visited If you went to New York, have you visited the United States? No, you visited New York. Same kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah, it is. It's really interesting. And again, we talked about this earlier. It's just not something I'm interested in anymore. I don't care.
Yeah. So I totally understand the people's desire to escape feeling. Feeling feelings is hard, right? Mm-hmm. Like some feelings really suck. Yeah. But I think it shows.
That's why you have to learn to manage your emotional states. That's why you have to learn emotional control. I'm telling guys this all the time. Because if you don't, you're fucked. Especially living today, you're going to be screwed with the internet. Just with the internet alone, very hard to be happy if you can't manage your own emotions. Because every day you'll be pissed off about something.
You are constantly being triggered. You're right. It's interesting to see the difference between how, and again, this may be localized within my area or my social group in the UK, but certainly for me, if you were to say, tell me one person that you know that is on a mood-altering drug, I would actually struggle to be able to find someone that I know. And I think what that shows is the natural way to deal with bad emotions can be dictated by what, firstly, societal conditioning in your local peer group, other people around you in the US, may be, oh, you feel bad, there's a Vicodin, or you should just go see your doctor, or whatever it might be. But on top of that as well, obviously, it's top down. It's being broadcast. at you. Like, you have a problem. The solution
Yeah.
the solution is in a pill or a cream or a da 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 da.
As you said that, I just thought through in my own head how many people I personally know on something, and I came up with 6 names.
Oh, wow.
I know a lot of people though,
Yeah.
so maybe I'm not a good example. But as I'm thinking of more. There's 7 people. The number of people I personally know on something, even if it's a prescription something. Yeah.
My point is that I think I wonder how many people who really need medication slip through the net in the UK by not having this awareness about the fact that prescription drugs could help, and how many people in the US are being oversold on things that they don't need because of this societal conditioning and because of this stuff here.
Sure. Well, that last aspect is most people who take these drugs. If you just did basic things like get 8 hours of sleep, drink a lot more water, monitor your hormones, get your hormone tests done, meditate a little bit, focus on something you like, have more sex. You just do those basic things. All of a sudden, a lot of these symptoms, not all of them, depends on the person, would go away with no drugs. And these would actually enhance your life instead of causing side effects. But what I just said, those things, those are hard. That takes work. People go, I don't want to work. All right. Take a drug then.
Well, a pill's super easy. Have you read Lost Connections by Johann Hari?
No.
Fantastic book on depression. Highly recommended if you've got a...
So on clinical depression or just in depression in general?
Depression in general. So he looks at the standard model of depression, that it's an imbalance of chemicals in the brain. And
send that to me when we're done talking. I'm interested.
Johann's a fantastic guy. I cannot... Johann, if you're listening, he does tune in sometimes. If you're listening, I'm going to continue hassling you to come on because I need to speak to you, man. But it's a fantastic book, really, really interesting. And he identifies 9 biological causes of depression. 7 environmental causes of depression, 2 biological. And the environmental ones are like...
that makes sense to me. 7 out of 9, that's about right. Yeah. That's about what I would expect.
Yeah. And he talks about loss of connection to nature, loss of connection to a meaningful future, loss of connection to work, loss of connection to childhood trauma, all of these things. And it's a very comprehensive analysis of people, and it's very narrative based. So again, for anyone who's listening who wants to enlighten themselves and make themselves a little bit better educated about why depression occurs, either in yourself or in the people that are around you, I can't recommend. It's the 80-20 book on depression for me. Like, just read it, super easy read, a little bit long, but super easy read. And you got it, man. But yeah, the way that people deal with it, they just think America appears to have, and it's bad, right? Because it reflects on you guys as a nation. People see Americans as this quick fix, transactional, transitory, like lazy people because of that culture, which isn't true in terms of the culture. It's just in terms of how people are dealing with things. And
historically, it has not been true.
Yes.
Historically, Americans have been the hardest working people on earth. Historically. Right now, we're changing. Historically. And there's still a decent percentage of us who are not lazy. But that's all changing based on demographic factors and economic factors and cultural factors and all kinds of things. It's changing.
What do you think the trajectory's got in store for you guys at the moment?
For what?
Moving forward with that particular, I guess, line of sight for whether people are going to continue, whether there's going to be something to change. Does there need to be a big intervention?
There needs to be, but there won't be.
Right.
Where Americans are now set on their path. We peaked, I mean, I'm not a historian, but based on the stuff I've read, and I've read a lot, America as a nation in relation to other nations peaked somewhere around the mid to late 1960s. And since then, we've been on the downslope, especially if you compare us to other nations.
Is that happiness?
And that is, what's that?
Is that happiness?
That is one.
Yeah.
It's economically, position in the world, our currency, levels of happiness. So now you have depression, suicide has gone up, all this crazy stuff. That's all happened. In my lifetime, I was born in 1972. And so in my lifetime, I have seen my country and most other countries in the Western world too. I don't want to just pick on my country, but I live here, so I see it.
Yeah.
I have seen my country get worse in literally every aspect except for crime rates have gone way down and technology has improved. Other than those two things, by every other measurement you could find, my country is worse off from when I was a kid to now. And this is the first time Americans have experienced this. Historically, If you were a 47-year-old American, you would see your country, if you were born in the 1800s, 1700s, early 1900s, even mid 1900s, you would have seen your country grow and improve, even with problems. We grew and improved in the 20th century, even though we had lots of problems. But you would have seen a net growth. So like, for example, wages, real wages as adjusted for inflation have been stagnant since I was 1 year old. And I'm almost 50. So I've never seen wages increase in my country as compared to inflation. So in the 1970s, my dad was a lower income worker. He was a lower middle class, maybe even upper lower class guy. And he barely made any money, but he was able to, in the 70s, he was able to support a family of 7. He was able to support a stay-at-home mom, my mom, and us. I had 5 siblings, so the 5 of us.
Yeah. And
that was in the late 70s, early 80s. Today, that's not even possible for a guy today in the United States. You couldn't even do that. You have to make a 6-figure income or higher to maintain all that stuff. A low-income guy can barely even support himself. A low-income guy today would struggle to live on his own and have a car in the United States, in most cities, in most regions. So that's the difference I've seen since I grew up, just in my lifetime. Yeah, it's not.
I don't know, man. I don't know what the future's got in store. I think again for the UK, we are a little bit less despondent because there's so much less turmoil. Like I look at America, especially American politics, and it looks like a sitcom. Like that's how it appears.
It is. You are correct. The perception is reality. It's a sitcom.
Okay.
It's been a sitcom for quite a while. It's not with Trump. People think it started with Trump. It started long before Trump. But yeah, it's a sitcom. Correct.
And yeah, I see that, and I think for some reason, maybe it's just me with rose-tinted glasses, and some of the listeners may be saying that I'm completely wrong about this, but the UK doesn't have that same degree of turmoil. We're certainly not as polarized in terms of the politics.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I think that just that, like that on its own, forces people, when you have fewer people at the ends of each spectrum politically in terms of how they identify with their particular kind of thinking stance, which is what it's become, right? Political stance is now not just about politics. It downstream from that totally. Well, surely that's got to affect your opinion on weed. Surely that's got to affect your opinion on alcohol and on pharmaceuticals and blah, 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 taxes and all the rest of it. But for the UK, people are a lot less identified with that. We got a lot more rain to contend with, I think, than you guys. So there's a lot more like umbrella putting up and putting down. But like, I don't know, it's interesting. I wonder how
I'll be there in October, I think.
Amazing.
October.
It'll still be okay weather by the time you get here. I was reading just before we came on, I was reading a news article, and it was talking about how to sell apps to kids. So it was an advice piece for app developers about the 2 trigger points for getting apps to kids. And we're talking like I think it's like under 7s or under 8s. And it was like, there's 2 different types of people that you can sell to. One of them are the kids, and then get them to kind of pester the parents. And the other one's the parents. I was looking at this article, like, I can't even believe that this is a thing. Like, in whose right mind should anyone be targeting? Well, why are you targeting apps at kids?
Money.
Well, yeah.
Are you surprised? Are you really surprised? You should be surprised.
Not surprised.
I'm not.
Not surprised. You are right. Not surprised, but I am. I'm concerned.
No, I'm biased in this area. I'm an extreme capitalist, so I'm very biased in this area. But still, no one should be surprised. Yeah, this is part of the world we live in. Sure.
Yeah, you are right. So we touched on it before. Your particular views on monogamy and dating and stuff like that. The listeners at home, as I mentioned before we started, we've never had anybody on who has been a polyamory advocate or whatever you would I don't even know how you class yourself. So can you just take us from the beginning? Talk to us about your stance and about what it means and stuff like that.
So the non-monogamy, I don't call it polyamory because polyamory is a segment of non-monogamy. So polyamory is very specific. Polyamory is when you are dating multiple women and they are dating multiple men. So it's kind of this big happy group kind of falling all over each other, which is fine. That's one segment of non-monogamy. So I call it non-monogamy. A, it's a little less threatening than polyamory, and B, it's more inclusive of all the different types of non-monogamy.
Cool.
So non-monogamy is not a core. I mean, it sounds like it is sometimes, depending on what you read of what I write. It's not the core of what I talk about. It is a important slice of the pie. So It really starts with long-term masculine happiness. And so the way men work, and women are different, but the way men work is the freer you are on a given day-to-day basis, meaning you can wake up every morning and do whatever you want, whenever you want, with whomever you want, without having to check in with anybody or get anyone's permission. The closer you are to that condition, the happier you tend to be. So you will be happier if you have your own business, generally speaking, than if you have a corporate wage job, because you have more freedom. You will be happier if you're allowed to have sex with multiple women whenever you want than if you're only allowed to have sex with one woman, at least long term. And that's the way you're wired. You can't control this. That's just the way you are. There are rare and usual exceptions, but they're the rare and usual exceptions. So if you look at, when I talk about things like Alpha 2.0, that is an entire lifestyle where you're gearing your entire life around maximum freedom in all the 7 areas of your life. The 2 core of those for a man being financial and sexual, you start there. You start with those 2 core areas because those help you with all the other areas once those are at a baseline. And so, yeah, if you go into the woman part, you need to be allowed to, for number one, you need to have sex. A new movement now is guys not having sex. So that's not going to make you happy long term. You're a guy. So assuming you're having sex, you need to be allowed to have sex with multiple women because long term, you're not going to be happy with having sex with just one woman. Short term, you will. You can make it work for a while, a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, whatever you are. Every guy's different. But long term, and the models I talk about are all long term models that last for the rest of your life, not just in your 20s and early 30s, but in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and so on. These are long term models. So if you want a long term happiness model, you've got to work in there in some way your ability to have sex with multiple women if you choose to. And there's 4 or 5 different ways you can do that. We can talk about those if you want. But that's where the non-monogamy comes from. It's not about non-monogamy. It's about long-term freedom, which creates long-term happiness for dudes.
Why do you think men and women are so different? What's specifically, obviously, genetically, you've alluded to the fact that man's genetic predisposition is to push his genes as far as is possible. However, right. It would appear, based on some of the people who I've spoken to, anthropologists, evolutionary biologists, that pair bonding has to occur. The reason that gestation is 9 months and that sex is a long process, a pleasurable process, the fact that women don't have visual ovulation, all of these sort of things, the fact that conception is actually relatively fairly tough for humans compared with some other animals.
Yes, accurate.
All of that leads towards pair bonding. Pair bonding needs to occur because the infant is pretty much dependent on the mother of the family, but specifically the mother, for the first 10 to 15 years. And you need to have a father around to protect that particular pairing, or however many children there is, that particular family unit. You need to have the father around, or else everybody dies. Because if a jaguar comes while you've got a mother with...
All accurate.
Okay, so
now here's the problem. This is where people get confused. Everything you just said is scientifically accurate. I've written about this stuff myself. So that's absolutely true. Human beings, this is where people get messed up. Human beings are pair bonding creatures, but they are not sexually monogamous creatures. Those are 2 different things. So you can be, I'm a perfect example. I am pair bonded. I'm married. I am pair bonded to one woman who I share my life with, who I love. I don't love anyone else. I don't want to be with anyone else. I don't want to spend the rest of my life with anyone else, just her and her with me. So we are pair bonded. But I'm allowed to go out on the side and get laid whenever I want, whenever I choose, with whomever I like. There's a few ground rules I agreed to. But beyond that, I'm still allowed to be non-monogamous, even though I'm pair bonded. So what happens is people quote these scientific facts, and they are facts. Absolutely true. And they say, see, we're monogamous. Well, then why is it we have a 76%, north of 76% divorce rate? Why do we have a 77% infidelity rate if we're monogamous? We are pair bonding creatures. We are not monogamous creatures. So again, if you want to be long-term happy, and I realize this is difficult because you're going to run into all kinds of societal programming and societal conditioning that tells you this is wrong, you're going to have to be long-term in your life, not when you're in your 20s. I tell guys, you shouldn't have a girlfriend until you're in your 30s, in my opinion. So once you're an older guy, yes, you need to be pair bonded, but not monogamous. So that means you sit down with your special someone and you explain it to her like an adult. Hey, I love you. I want to be with you. I don't want to be with anyone else. and I'm a human being, and I'm a guy. And that means A, B, and C. We could lie to each other like teenagers and say, well, we're in love and we'll be together forever and we'll never want to sleep with anyone else because we're in love and Disney's and Narnia and unicorns and roses and shit. Or we can be adults and say, let's be together. Let's figure out a plan where we can integrate this into our lifestyles so I can be happy and you can be long-term happy because I'm happy, and we avoid all these problems, or at least most of the problems that normal couples have. The 76% divorce rate people.
I mean, the fact that there is such a high divorce rate, people just presume, I guess, if you think about it, or if you to ask the layperson on the street, why is the divorce rate so high? It would be maybe some kind of wistful heritage thing about, well, it wasn't that way in my parents' day. My parents are still together. Perhaps that
right. They just cheated. Right. People stayed married, and the men, mostly men, cheated. So they still weren't monogamous.
Okay, so why
long-term marriage and marriage working?
Yeah.
Well, they've been married for 47 years. He's never cheated. Maybe he hasn't, but the odds are. I've talked to a lot of old guys my grandfather's age, guys in their 90s, World War II guys. These guys were married, and they stayed married. They were not monogamous. They cheated. I don't know if you've seen the American show Mad Men about Americans in the 60s. It was the standard model back then. You cheated. That's just what you did when you're a guy. Women too, not as much, but they did too.
Why is the divorce rate changed?
Because women are now allowed to do whatever they want. So back in the olden days, in like the 1950s, which a lot of guys in my world, the red pill manosphere world, I want to go back to, women weren't allowed to get divorced. So women would actually go into a court in the 40s, 30s, 50s and say, I want to divorce my husband. And the judge would say, what the hell? You can't get back to your husband. Next case. Or they couldn't do it financially. They couldn't support themselves. They needed to be married.
So we've got.
And if they got divorced, their religious family would disown them. So all these factors are now gone. Women are now encouraged to get divorced. Now it's the opposite.
Well, you've become more financially independent, more secular, and more accepting, I guess, of divorce as a whole.
Correct. Yeah.
And I mean that.
And it'll get worse. The divorce rate will increase. You're going to see soon, in the next decade, you're going to see 90+% divorce rates.
Wow.
People are very slow to figure this out. Written about this a lot. They don't want to admit the system doesn't work anymore, so they're just going to keep getting married, keep getting divorced, keep screwing up their kids, keep getting financially raped, keep cheating on each other and yelling at each other. And it's going to be a while before human beings finally go, we should probably pick a different system. This isn't working. It's going to be a while. Unfortunately.
The stats, I mean, there's not much that I can say about the fact that more than 3/4 of the people who get married end up getting divorced. As far as I was aware, maybe it's a UK stat. I think it was more than 50. But no matter what the stat is, if there's a high likelihood that you're going to get divorced than stay together, it's a worrying statistic. No matter what your views on monogamy are, it's a pretty worrying statistic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah. Instead, people should figure out how to stay together like two normal human beings, the way human beings actually work, instead of the way human beings work in a Disney fairy tale. Where we're going to get married and we're going to be in love forever. We're never going to fuck anyone else because we're in love. And that's because Snow White. Yeah.
What were you saying at the beginning about humans being mimetic creatures and about us taking a lot of societal conditioning? Swallowing that red pill, as you've alluded to, is a difficult thing to do when everyone else around you hasn't, right? Like when you're...
That's the big problem with guys in my audience. That's one of the biggest questions I get. I don't know any other men like me. If I tell my mom, she's going to get mad at me. Yeah, that's the big challenge. I've been working the last year and a half on that specific problem for guys to plug into more communities and things like that. But yes, that's the problem. That's the problem. Because it's very rare these days. Now, 10 years ago, I would get this. But these days, it's very rare for a man to say, oh, no, traditional monogamous marriage works great as long as you do these few things, and every guy should do that. It's very rare a guy, even a hardcore right-wing evangelical Christian, even those guys don't say that. They say, yeah, it doesn't work, but I'm not going to do this and this. Non-monogamy, well, fuck that. No. Okay, but that's fine. If you don't have to like it, but the alternative doesn't work. You're pointing at something that doesn't work. So you've either got something that doesn't work, or you've got something that works but makes you emotionally uncomfortable for a while. So those are your two options. I'd rather pick this because I want to be happy. I'm not going to pick something that doesn't work.
So one of the first things that comes to mind for me when I think about a non-typical, non-monogamous relationship, or a non-typical relationship which is non-monogamous, is what do you do about the kids? What do you do about raising children in that sort of an environment?
I personally know about, let's see, as in right this second, I know, let's see, 6 couples, and I've known many other couples, six or seven, I have to think about that for a minute, who are married, who live together. No one really knows what kind of lifestyle they lead other than close friends and people like me, and they have kids. As a matter of fact, when I was married the first time, back when I was young and stupid, I was married 1,000 years ago. I was married traditionally and monogamously, and it didn't work because she got depressed and started taking pills. And when we were married, while I was married, literally four houses down on my street, I didn't know this till after I had moved away, there was a married couple with 2 little kids who played with my kids, who had a wide open marriage. I had no idea. As far as I know, they're still married. This is decades ago. They were the happiest couple on the block, and they had kids. Now, no one knew. That's why I didn't know. Didn't know till later. Just kind of for the grapevine. I went, what? I actually called him up and said, is this true? I don't want to freak out here, but is it true that he's like, oh yeah. And my old joke to myself is, if I had just sat down and talked to that guy for an hour before I got married the first time, incorrectly in my view, it would have saved me a lot of time and effort. So you can have kids, you just can't. I have kids. I raised kids under this model. I just got remarried, let's see, a year and a half ago. Yes. And so my daughter and my son were little when I was living this way. There are rules. You don't parade women around your kids, obviously. You need to show your kids some level of consistency. You need to be an example. You don't go out and telling everybody in their school or all your friends and family that what you're doing if you don't want to. People don't have to know what you're doing. There's no requirement there. You just have to be realistic about your sexual desires. So yeah, you can have kids. A lot of people have kids. And again, if I say have an open marriage and have kids, immediately your societal programming goes, okay, fine. You can live your life like 2 + 2 = 5 if you want. That's fine. Cool. You won't be very happy. Not a lot of problems. You can do that. It's fine. I'd rather live 2 + 2 = 4, even if I don't really like 4 and 4 emotionally bothers me initially. That's how I look at it.
So some of the listeners may have heard us talk about him before, but Aubrey Marcus, I don't know whether you know who that is, the guy that owns Onnit.
I've heard that name, but that's all I know. I've heard that name.
So he's the CEO or founder of Onnit, which is a supplement company that Joe Rogan is a partner of. Right. Very big, very successful. I haven't actually spoken that much about Aubrey, but people who read my tweets will have seen that recently I had to unsubscribe from his newsletter. Aubrey and his wife Whitney, who is a very attractive Ultimate Fighting Championship type ring announcer, commentator type woman, super fit, very, very, but they are in I think it's classed as a polyamorous or an open relationship. There's probably a degree of granularity that you would be able to discern from what's going on that I'm not going to be able to get to. But and he talks about this experience when his wife brought home another man for the first time and the way that he felt. And then he talked about the first time that he had sex with another woman. And he said both of those situations, every time that his wife brought another man home, he was dry retching on the floor. And it took him 4 months to get over. And
oh my God, no.
So this is in his email newsletter. One of the things I can say about Aubrey is he's very candid, right? So his email newsletter.
Yeah, at least he's being honest. That's very cool of him. He's being honest. That's great. We need more people like that, actually. So I applaud him for that. I'm one of the few guys in the world, I think, literally, who talk about my non-monogamous exploits and my experiences under my own name with my own picture, and it's me.
Yeah.
And there should be a lot more people than just me. There are people I know with audiences my size or much larger who don't talk about this. So at least he's doing that. But yeah, one of the challenges with this are guys who do this wrong. So everything he's describing, I would never do in my marriage. That doesn't work. I don't want to be mean to this guy. I have no idea. But
no,
yes,
fire away. You're an expert in this particular field, or as close to an expert as I can get hold of. So we're going to find out what you think.
You have to sit down. You have to sit down and be realistic about what will piss you off and what will not piss you off before you actually get into the relationship and before you even have these discussions. So that's number one. A lot of people don't even do that. They say, okay, we're open. A lot of more like left-wing, like hippie-ish type people. Oh, we're sexually free. It'll be great. And then, yeah, and then their wife brings a guy to the house and has sex with him. Oh my God. No. You have to know your own parameters and be self-aware first. What am I capable of doing? What am I not capable of doing? If X, Y, and Z happen, would I be able to handle that or not? And you need to think that stuff through. And even if you need to write it down, you figure all this stuff out and get it all on paper first. I'm not a super jealous guy, but there are things my wife could do that would make me not retch on the floor, but things like, oh Jesus, what the hell? So you have to be aware of those things first. Then your partner has to be aware of her things. So she has to, you get into her head a little bit, because she's probably not going to tell you, and figure out what her parameters are internally. And every woman is very different. So for example, my wife is more comfortable if she's more aware of the specific women I'm playing with on the side. Whereas my last serious relationship, the girlfriend I had before her, she was the opposite. If she didn't know, she knew I was doing it, but she didn't know any details, she was very happy. She thought it was fine. When she found out details, or when I told her things, she would get really pissed off. So every woman is very different about this. So that's the first level. Then the second level is you sit down and you discuss the ground rules, again, before you get too serious. Once you're already moved in and married and now you're going to discuss ground rules, that's too late. So my wife and I had a very long, detailed discussion I called the OLTR talk. I have a whole structure for this stuff. This was several years ago, and I laid out all the negatives of being married to me. And non-monogamy was one of them. And that actually wasn't the one she was pissed off. There was like 4 or 5 of them, and that was just one. Matter of fact, the one she was scared about was that I work a lot. I work every day. She's like, well, she didn't care about the non-monogamy because I'd already been doing it the whole time she met me. So she was used to it at that point. It was more like, well, you're going to work a lot. You're never going to spend time with me. It was more of that kind of stuff. But you lay all that stuff out, and then you lay out the ground rules, and you're very specific about the ground rules based on what you're capable of and what you think you're not capable of emotionally. You just don't go hog wild and bring men over. So he should have known, hey, look, wife, before she's my wife, hey, girlfriend who are thinking about getting serious, we're going to be non-monogamous. Here are the parameters, but here's what you can't do. You can't bring guys over and fuck them on my couch. That I'll throw up. You got to be honest about that stuff. And he didn't do that. And a lot of people don't do that. It damages the cause when that happens. I see that a lot of that.
It reads to me, the emails and the stuff that I've seen from him and his semi-diary. He uses his email list. Sometimes it almost feels a little bit like a journal.
Wow. Well, that's kind of cool. That's neat.
So the transparency from Aubrey, I really admire.
Yeah, I think it's great.
I had to unsubscribe. Aubrey, if you're listening, I apologize, but it was too woke. Like, it was so woke, and everything was like hyper woke, each email that came through. And I think, well, he's big into...
Those are the kind of people who screw this up. People who go too far with the left-wing wokeness stuff. And we're creatures of nature, and it doesn't matter. And no, it does matter. It does matter to certain people. So you have to be aware of these things. There are boundaries of these things. Now, if you're not serious, then you can do whatever you want. So I talk about, there's different types. There's FBs, which are non-serious. There's MLTRs, where it's serious but not committed. And there's OLTR, which is like a girlfriend or your wife. So there's levels. And there's less rules as you go further over to this side of the scale. You can do whatever you want over here. Over here, if you want to be pair bonded, you've got to commit to some level of rules. It's not a free-for-all. It's not going to work. It's not how human beings work, unfortunately. It'd be nice if they did, but they don't.
Yeah, so I think what it seems to me, so Aubrey's a big like psychedelic warrior, right? Like, he's big into his mushrooms and his DMT, and he goes away with the shaman and gets like does all the ceremonies and all that sort of stuff.
Not surprised, I guess.
And I think, yeah, it fits the model, right?
Yeah.
What I think he was potentially doing with this was almost seeing it as like a rite of passage. I think he had seen this particular prescription for non-monogamy in whatever model it was that he thought that he was going to adhere to. And then him and his then wife were going to fit their life around this prescription, as opposed to having it be emergent, which is what you're talking about. He had seen, okay, this is what non-monogamy is, therefore I'm going to stick to it. And I think he talks about, I think it's in his book, Seize the Day, he talks about how he brought this guy home and it was like this for the first X number of weeks or months or times or whatever that it happened.
Oh my God.
And then he had a breakthrough. And you sound, the terminology for breakthrough is taken from when people smoke DMT, right? It's that you have this breakthrough experience, or you take a hero dose of mushrooms and you break through. And I think he was maybe trying to layer a psychedelic framework, or like fit non-monogamy into a psychedelic matrices. Like that was what he was trying to fit it into.
Too woke. You're right. Too woke.
Too woke. That's it. It could be summarized in.
He's lost objectivity and he's lost reality. You need to be objective about these things.
I mean,
and that's an example. It's an interesting example of it going the other way. Most people are on the other side, more the right-wing side, including people who are considered left-wing people. Marriage looks like this, and a relationship looks like this, and it better look like this, or you're a sinner, or I'm never going to get. Usually, people are on the other side of irrationality. He's on this side of the irrational. There's a rational zone in the middle between those two extremes. You've got to be rational about how human beings are, but you also have to be rational and objective and self-aware enough to know what your limits are. And every guy's different, and every woman's different.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, man. It's an interesting one. I mean, the penultimate email to the one that I unsubscribed from, the title was "Me and Whitney nearly split up today," and that's him and his wife. And I'm like, I appreciate.
Yeah, it's a little too much information. He shouldn't be. Yeah,
it's the wokeness, man. Like, so I appreciate the transparency, and I genuinely do think, and it plays into his shtick, right? It's part and parcel of his thing, but. I'm like, man, like if you and your wife are on the verge of splitting up, don't use that as your fucking weekly newsletter content.
Yeah.
Like that's a piece of advice. And another piece of advice, like he talks in the fucking first or second line of this, of his Instagram post from the same day was like, Whitney left to go to Texas to see her boyfriend today.
So this is an example of what you were talking about earlier about what polyamory is, the difference between polyamory and an open relationship.
Okay.
So in my view, and this is not a fact more than my opinion, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. If you want to be pair bonded, that person shouldn't have other boyfriends because that's not pair bonding. So if your wife has a boyfriend, or if you're married and you have another girlfriend on the side, a girlfriend, that's not pair bonding.
Yeah, he has two. He has two girlfriends.
He has two girlfriends. Okay. So if he views these as real girlfriends, real emotional meaning and commitment to these women in addition to his wife, that's not pair bonding. That's something else. That's more polyamory. So that'd be a polyamorous marriage, which I'm against. I think that's a very bad idea.
Why?
I think polyamory is great if you are not pair bonded. So for many years, in my parlance, it'd be MLTR. So I had multiple MLTRs for years, and it was great. But I didn't have a girlfriend. They were all women I was dating, and I really liked, and I liked on an emotional level. But they weren't a girlfriend. Once you have a girlfriend, that's pair bonding. So if you have multiple girlfriends, I've talked to a lot of guys about this, hundreds of guys about this. Almost never have I seen that work long term, to have multiple in the Western world. I mean, you could move to Saudi Arabia or do something else. But in the Western world, having multiple girlfriends or multiple wives or something to that equivalent, it doesn't work long term in the West. You can't do that. If you're going to be pair bonded, you need to be pair bonded. I am with you. I have no other girlfriends or wives except you. I'm allowed to go get laid on the side. These are not my girlfriends. These are women who are my friends. FBs, which is friend with benefits. It's a friend, not a girlfriend. So I have an OLTR, I have a wife, and I have FBs. They're not my girlfriends. They're just my buddies. And we have sex, and that's it. We don't go on dates. We don't spend the week together. I already have that with my wife. That's a more long-term sustainable model.
I understand. I think, Aubrey, if you're listening, we got some advice for you, man. Get in touch with Caleb. He'll do a little rundown. He'll maybe give you a little bit of a...
He needs to downgrade his girlfriends to FBs. He needs to make his wife his only wife and his only girlfriend, and she needs to make that kind of commitment too. And if she doesn't want to, they should get divorced, and they should just date.
There we go.
Now it's sustainable. That's a sustainable model.
I'll re-sign up to his newsletter and I'll reply and I'll give him give him the too long didn't read from the podcast, man.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've been thinking in the back of my mind, and I can't fantastically put myself in the mind of a female, but to the girls that are listening, I would love to hear what your thoughts are about this, whether or not you would have ever considered this, or whether it's so kind of visceral and stomach turning because of the way that you naturally consider couples and partnerships to be, that it's difficult to almost put yourself into this situation. But I think certainly one of the things that will come to mind for many people and I'm very empathetic, right? Like my empathy is crippling. So for me to think about the way that...
You're probably a nicer person than me, though. You're probably a nice guy.
Yeah, but too nice sometimes. And unfortunately, people, if they realize how empathetic you are, it's a big, big advantage taking things.
Yes. Yes.
And it causes you to move slow as well. Like when you're super concerned about how your actions are going to affect other people, it often causes you to drop into inertia. So, but we all have our shortcomings and our advantages, right? Like there's people out there who might not have the empathy, but they have a whole host of other issues they got to deal with.
That's me. I have extremely, I've been told, and then they're right, extremely low empathy. I barely give a shit about anything. So the advantage is I can move very quickly. I can get a lot of things done. I have a very organized, very good life. The disadvantage is I can hurt people's feelings if I'm not careful, people close to me. So as you grow, you have to learn to mitigate those weaknesses. So you have to learn to stay empathetic, but not let it hamper you. And I have to learn how to be more empathetic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's interesting, man. It is interesting how you do that. Do you find within the non-monogamy community, people skew to less empathetic? I'm going to guess maybe.
No.
Yes. Really?
No, I don't. I run into people who are more like you.
Okay, that's interesting.
Especially the polyamory people, and I'm really not in that group.
Yep.
I mean, they're non-monogamy, so they're my brothers. I love them, but I'm not a polyamorous guy.
Yep.
So, but yes, especially the polyamory world, yes, much more empathetic guys. Yes,
interesting.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. But yeah, so to try and put myself into the mind of a girl thinking about this particular situation, certainly one of the problems that you may come up against, I'm going to guess you will have a format for this or a structure for this that exists, where you have a man who does want to be able to have other partners outside of his main relationship, but
which is all men. But go ahead.
But the girl in the relationship has no desire to be with other men.
Normal.
Yeah, but that I think what
just described the norm.
Okay.
At least in the earlier parts of the relationship, you just described the norm. He wants to play around and she doesn't want to or doesn't want to yet.
What that leads to people thinking, and what it certainly leads to me thinking, is that there's some kind of imbalance, unfairness between the two, that somehow the open non-monogamous relationship would work more easily or would somehow be more balanced, is a way to put it, if both partners had other things going on.
That's true. But if one partner doesn't want those things, which happens all the time, it's happened to me a lot, then fine. As long as she is allowed to, because that's one of the first questions she's going to throw at your face when you start describing these things to her. The very first thing that's going to tumble out of her mouth is, well, can I fuck other guys? Even if she doesn't want to and has no intention to and thinks it's gross. If she were to do that, she's still going to say that. And if you say, well, then you're out. If you say, yes, if you really want to do that, yes, of course. And then she goes, oh.
Cool. So, I mean, so there we lead on to the next thing, which is that for men, and again, this is evolutionary conditioning. For men, allowing your partner to sleep with other men provokes an incredibly visceral response.
Incredibly.
And if you want to have your cake, you need to, I'm going to guess that it's probably a pretty difficult sell to say our relationship is going to be non-monogamous, but only for me.
And not long-term sustainable.
Okay, so if
I've never seen that. I've seen guys try that. I've never seen it last more than 9 months.
Where the guy is able
numerous men try that in the Western world.
Guy's able to sleep around, girl isn't.
Yeah, so he's literally says, I'm going to fuck other women. You can only fuck me. And she's like, and he's a strong alpha male. And she's a little willowy, little submissive girl. And she goes, oh, okay. And within 9 months, they either break up or she bangs someone else just to make it even and to balance it out, just to get back at him.
Yeah. So for guys, I mean, like for me personally, again, maybe I'm too blue pill or maybe I haven't taken the red pill yet enough for this. I struggle to see a situation in which I would be able to stomach somebody that I love sleeping with someone else with my allowance, with my grace.
So there's several answers to that. Answer number one, and they're different areas. So answer number one is a significant percentage of women who are not super young. So if she's under the age of 23, she's going to have sex with other guys. That's what young girls do. If she's older, a significant percentage, and in my experience, in my anecdotal experience, but I have a lot of anecdotal experience, it's around 40 to 50% won't sleep with other men. Even if they have the opportunity to, they don't want to. They think that's gross. So even though you're sleeping with other women, they say, okay, you're a man, you're a barbarian, that's how men are, but I don't do that. I'm appropriate. I'm a Christian, or I'm a this, or I'm a that, so I'm not going to do that. So that's one. Number two, if she does, women are not like men. And so what men do is they negative fantasize about, well, if I'm allowed to go out and have sex constantly with other women, and I'm going to constantly do that for the rest of my life, oh no, she's going to constantly do that. No, she doesn't. Women go through horny phases. They go through non-sexual phases. They go through all kinds of different phases. So if she does, she might do it for a few months and then stop and never do it again. Or maybe do it once every 10 years or once every few years, off and on, very rarely. She's not going to do it consistently like I do it or like you would do it because we're men. Men are not like women. That's the second answer. Third answer is you should train yourself to get to the point where you care less. So if you're a jealous person, it's going to be harder for you to be a happy person. So if you have this thing where, and a lot of guys are like this, there's guys who are really jealous, guys who are moderately jealous, and guys who really don't give a shit. So the really jealous guys, if they even see a guy comment on her Facebook page, or they hear a thing on Instagram go off on her phone, and they just go into a rage, you have a problem. There's something wrong with you. You need to fix. You don't say, well, I'm a man and that's just how I am, and quote a bunch of, evolutionary psychology about how I need to, protect my women and I'm not going to. You can give me all that science you want. There's something wrong with you in terms of your long-term happiness if you're that angry and that jealous. So if you are on a scale from 1 to 10, you're a 12. If you visualize a woman you like having meaningless sex with a beta male who's no competition to you wearing a condom, if that just drives you insane, then it behooves you in terms of being a man and being a happy man and to prove yourself to get that 12 down to a 6 or a 7 or a 5 or somewhere in there. Drop it down. You should do that anyway, even if you would plan on being monogamous for the rest of your life, you would do that anyway. You shouldn't go through life being that touchy about these things, because that's all I see all the time. And that's one of women's biggest complaints about guys is they start seeing them and all of a sudden the guy starts to just put all these fences and walls around them and the woman's attraction for the man goes down. She's like, ugh. Now for a while she likes it because that means he likes me. But after a while, oh my God, kill me. And that's one of the reasons why 75% of boyfriend-girlfriend relationships are terminated by the female. Because the woman gets tired of this stuff.
Is that the statistic?
That's the stat, 3/4. 3/4 of boyfriend-girlfriend relationships are ended by the woman, and 70 to 80%, depending on the study you look at least in the United States, of divorces are initiated by the female.
Interesting.
So women like getting into relationships. Women hate staying in relationships. It's not what they like.
You could argue
generally speaking.
You could argue that the girl is ending the relationship because they potentially found out that the man had cheated.
That's a huge percentage of them, yes.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I'm being able to do this, you can do this now, especially now. If a woman starts complaining about this, if you start explaining this to a woman when you first start verbalizing it, oh, you can't fuck other girls. That's not what a relationship looks like. All you have to do, I've done this with many women, including my wife when I met her. All you have to do is say, you look at her and you say, every boyfriend you've ever had of a decent period of time has cheated on you, right? And they go, and that's it. You're in. You're done. That covers so much of it because they know monogamy doesn't work. So that's the fourth answer is, what is your alternative? Your alternative is something that doesn't work, that we know for sure doesn't work. It's not like maybe this might work. We know for sure the odds are overwhelming that it probably won't work. So by saying I can't do this, again, you're going back to a system that doesn't work. Those are my 4 answers to that.
I think a lot of people, because of the visceral reaction that you'll get, maybe the dry retching on the floor or just the sensation that people get, both guys and girls, when you think about, to the people that are in relationships who are listening, just for a second, put yourself in the mind and think what would happen if you tried to have an open relationship or a non-monogamous relationship where you were allowed to sleep with other people, but you had to put up with your partner sleeping with someone else. It evokes such a very, very visceral response.
It does.
I think that is a hurdle so many people will struggle to get over. And I'm going to guess potentially more guys will struggle to get over that hurdle of allowing the partner to sleep with other people than maybe even girls. Yeah, I thought.
Yeah, no, not maybe. That is correct. Guys have a much harder problem with this than women do.
Cool.
Women are accustomed to men sleeping around throughout all of human history, so they're kind of used to it. They don't like it, but they're more. It's men who have a problem with it. Yeah.
Interesting. But yeah, I mean that
and
response.
That's why the divorce rate's going to continue to get worse because of what you just said. What's working, what people are doing now isn't working, but the alternative is so horrible, they're going to keep going back to what isn't working over and over and over. Unless your goal in life, and there are a few men who say this to me, but not many, unless your goal in life is to have serial, short-term, monogamous relationships for the rest of your life. So in other words, if you tell me, hey man, my goal is to have a girlfriend, and I'll have her for about a year and a half, 2 years, then I'll break up with her, it'll be monogamous, then I'll get a new girlfriend. And I'll date her for about a year, and then I'll have a new girlfriend.
Do that 20 times for the rest of my life.
For the rest of your life. If you say, look, I'm cool doing that until in my 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and you really say that with honesty, then you can ignore everything I'm saying because that'll work. Other than that, if you want something long-term, you're going to have to embrace a model that is something other than what doesn't work.
So as a bookend question to what has been a really interesting discussion, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think is the optimal setup for a relationship in life. So we've talked about you've had multiple long-term partners moving through. Would you have preferred in a different iteration of the world where you could control everything that occurred within it? Do you think it's optimal to have what I can't remember, the MLFB or whatever it was?
OLTR.
The
so
main
one wife or girlfriend, you mean?
Yes. Is it optimal, if you can, to have one for 60 years, 30 years, however long, from mid-30s until whenever? Or from...
Are you talking about optimal as in how human beings are now?
For you, if you were to say to someone, this is what I think is, for a broad cross-section of people, the best way to do things.
Yes, for a broad cross-section of men, but not all men, because there are exceptions to all these rules.
Yeah.
There are some men who should never pair bond. There are a small percentage of men who should never have a girlfriend. They should just go bang chicks and date and into their 60s and 70s, and but that's an exception. Yes, for a broad cross-section of people, the least bad scenario, because I don't want to say best, because there are problems with the models I'm talking about.
Yes.
Everything you've talked about those are accurate criticisms. The least bad system is a long-term pair-bonded wife or girlfriend, however you want to term it, assuming you're over the age of 35, because I tell guys, don't settle down with a woman until you're at least 35. That's insane. At least you're 35. So assuming you're 35 or older, you have a long-term, decades-long wife or girlfriend that you are really good with and you're very complementary with and compatible with, and you are allowed to get sex on the side within ground rules. These are not your girlfriends. This is more casual, friendly sex when you need it as a man, and she is allowed to too. And the older she gets, the less she'll do it. She may not do it at all as she gets older. That's the least bad scenario for the broadest cross section of people. Yes, because that is what I just described is doable long term. What is not doable long term is we're going to be married. You're never going to touch anyone else for the rest of your fucking life, and I won't either. And you roll your eyes as you're saying it when you're a guy. I promise I won't either, honey. And we're never going to get divorced. We're never going to split up. That's not long-term sustainable because that is a fundamental violation of everything in which, all the ways in which you were designed as a man and as a woman. That's why it doesn't work.
Okay, so I'm going to finish off with a question, which is you've got the monogamy, which is the traditional relationship approach, which you've just identified there. And then you've got Aubrey's relationship, which is I'm going to have a wife and the wife's going to have... Which one
that's a polyamorous marriage.
Which one is in your eyes, the least effective?
Neither of those are long-term sustainable.
Which one's going to fail first?
How long has he been married?
Oh, I'm not sure. I don't know.
His will. You can grit your teeth and be monogamous to a wife for a long time. I did it for 9 years, and I'm a really high sex. So you can do it. Men and women can grit their teeth and suffer through shitty marriages. A lot of people can do that. They did that all throughout the 50s and 60s and all that good stuff. So you can have a marriage, traditional monogamous marriage that lasts a long time. It won't last forever. That's not how you're designed. And if it does last forever, someone's cheating and someone's putting up with it.
But someone's going to encounter, in the polyamorous marriage, someone's going to encounter a problem that is they're
that is
unable
catastrophic to the relationship. If he's retching on the floor because there's a man fucking his wife in his house, how is that long-term sustainable? It's not. Can't do it.
Well, I mean, I asked myself.
Whereas the guy who has a wife at home and he cheats on her and hopes he doesn't get caught, you could stretch that out for a long time. Not forever, but you could stretch that out, sure.
Some people make it last for their entire lives, right?
And that's fine, but that's not monogamous. So that's what I would view dysfunctional non-monogamy. You're non-monogamous because you're cheating. You're having sex with multiple people. You're just pretending you're not. So now you're dealing with drama and lying and all kinds of other problems that are dysfunctional to your core relationship with your wife.
And again,
I don't have to lie to my wife.
If you're an empathetic individual, as I am, the times that I have cheated in past relationships have caused such second order, third order, fourth order effect guilt, and then self-referential guilt, and then all of those things, feelings of lower degree of virtue, lower degree of integrity, all of those sorts of things. That for me, I was like, well, that's not a workable model. Cheating, being in a relationship and cheating is not a workable model. For me,
not if you want to be happy.
No.
Not if you want to be happy. I've talked to a lot of guys about that model, and they tell me exactly what you're saying. Or they're terrified. They're constantly worried they're going to get caught. They have multiple phones and multiple accounts and all that good stuff. That is not a long-term sustainable model if happiness is your objective. Now, if you say to me, and there's a few men who say this, I don't care about being long-term happy. I don't give a fuck about that. I want to live my life this way. And yeah, you might be happier than me. I don't care. Great, then go ahead and cheat. But if your objective is long-term happiness, you are correct. You can't adopt a cheating model long-term. You've got to figure out something else that is more long-term sustainable, even if it makes you uncomfortable during the first few months or year or two you try it.
That's interesting. Caleb, for the listeners at home who want to find out a little bit more, maybe some people think, oh, well, it's an interesting discussion that I want to read a bit more about, where would you direct them?
I have a lot of websites. The easiest place to go would be calebjones.com. So CALEB as in boy, jones.com. That's kind of the central hub of all my websites.
Yep.
A lot of my content is business and location dependent income and all that good stuff too. Again, non-monogamy is a segment of what I talk about in terms of masculine lifestyle design.
Yeah, I got you. Well, Caleb, it's been really interesting. I hope that we have opened some people's eyes to a alternative approach to relationships. I think certainly for me over the last few years, I've seen people talk about non-monogamy in different versions as we've gone through today. Increasingly, I do wonder what the trajectory of that's going to be. I wonder whether people are going to dig their heels in as divorce rates continue to go up. I wonder whether people are going to dig their heels into the existing model more, or whether more people will begin to migrate across to non-monogamy.
I think you're going to see a lot of both.
Everything gets polarized, man. But it's been really fascinating. Thank you so much for your time.
You bet. Anytime.
Catch you later on, man.